excited because today we've got some great guests from Fifth Third Bank. We have Shannon Paul, the Vice President and Social Media Director, and Greg Love, Director of Coaching and Development. Good morning, you two. I appreciate your time.
Morning.
Good morning.
And I've been looking online and I see that Fifth Third is really moving ahead in helping your clients and beyond just financial education, but with a job seeker's toolkit. Could you explain a little bit about what you have offered here?
Sure. Well, we have a job seeker's toolkit that we rolled out earlier this year. We partner with a company called NextJob. We saw a need among some of the people who were going through foreclosure or were in danger of going through foreclosure, and originally started inviting some of those people who were going through a foreclosure or were in danger of foreclosing because of losing a job. So we partnered with NextJob, which has a great job counseling, and they work with people to create resumes and networking skills, and they help them train and prepare for interviews, look at their career direction and some of the transferable skills to other markets, and also develop a personal brand. And we started inviting certain people to participate in that, and then soon we rolled it out to all of our customers. But then we also have an e-bus that goes to a lot of different areas, and we made it available for people, whether or not they were a customer of Fifth Third Bank or not. And we're also offering people who are listeners to this podcast and readers of your blog to be able to participate. So the first 10 people who respond can also get free access to our job seekers toolkit.
That is fantastic. What I like most is it does seem to be a very interactive job training through different online learning modules. Is that?
Yeah, it's web-based, it's multimedia, and that people can use really on their own time, their own schedule. So yeah, we think it's a great program, and we're excited to partner with them. And we've had about 2,000 people go through the program with them already, who are either customers of ours or connected to us through our eBus program. Yeah, we're excited to extend that offer for you and your readers.
Oh, really appreciate it. You mentioned the personal brand. I think nowadays, one thing that I'm seeing with a lot of my candidates and a lot of my clients is the market is so crowded. It's not just about your competency and your experience anymore. It's really about the personal brand. How would you define a personal brand?
Well, this is Greg, and how I think it's best defined probably it's about expectations. It's about who do you expect us to be or act like, or it's based on how they know us. If you think about the Fifth Third brand and the e-bus and those things that we're doing, one of the things that we want to make sure people recognize is it's about the community, and that's why we're here, and that's who we serve. And so to be able to extend that out to say this is what we really believe in is in caring and showing that care through what we can do for the community is really what the brand is, hopefully, that's out there that they recognize us by. So really it's about expectations and setting that up so that people understand what it is and who it is that you are.
Very good. Yes, I think Tom Peters coined the phrase personal brand in his 1997 essay, A Brand Called You. And if I recall his book, The Brand You 50, the second chapter was, "You have no option. The white-collar revolution is about to swallow me, you, us." And he was very insightful to see the crowded marketplace and how vital it is that people really stand out from the crowd. I can imagine that in social media, this is a tremendous playing field to step out. Sort of you are what you tweet kind of thing. Is that sort of the way it is, Shannon?
Sure. Social media gives people really an unprecedented way to really establish a personal brand in a way that's discoverable to other people who they're either connected to or not. You have access to all sorts of free tools that, if somebody goes to Google and types in your name, chances are, unless you are, a top executive somewhere, they're going to land on your LinkedIn profile or see your Twitter profile or your Facebook profile. And those are, because social media sites have such a strong pull for search engines. So it's really, there's never been a time in history where people have had more of a a way to sort of control how they're perceived, at least on the internet, that's available to so many other people.
Right. Greg, what are some of the most important elements to consider when someone is considering building their personal brand?
First question to ask, or maybe not a question, but the first thing to think about is we already have a brand. And what the question is we need to ask ourselves is it an intentional brand, or is it by not mistake, but is it something that's already out there that you just think of haphazardly? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're very intentional about what it is that we want to create as our brand. So if you think about starting a brand, you want to think about getting to know yourself first of all. Do that through reflection, do that through assessments, and ask yourself the questions. Who do you want to be? What are your interests? What's your passion? What are the values that you have, and how would you prioritize those values? And basically what you want to do is build your brand by describing what you believe in and then acting on them. And then, of course, modeling that way. Because we are always our brand. Whether we're at work, whether we're at home, whether we're out at a store somewhere, we are what we represent that people see. And so it's really an overall advertisement for who we are. So the question we want to ask ourselves is, who is it that we want to be, and then how are we going to project that out to who we want to know that?
Good points. Can you offer any suggestions as far as different personality tests that might be available to help somebody?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's not just a personality test, but I mean, if you really want to get to know yourself, first of all, I think it's going to take some self-reflection, just to kind of write down who you are in your ideal self, but then also think a little bit about, what's my real self, and how do I check that out? Well, some things you can do, I mean, there's certainly some things that are out online, some of which might be free, some might have some small cost to them, but things that I would think of would be strengths finders, for instance. And that really is how you leverage your strengths. So it helps you to discover those strengths that you have and at least put a label to it, so you might be able to have some language around that. Are you introverted or extroverted? Are you a sensor or are you a thinker? It's those kind of things that might be helpful for you to understand where you're coming from and what the world sees of you. There's a DISC profile out there, and a DISC profile helps you to see whether or not you have characteristics of dominance or influence or steadiness or compliance. There's also a lot of different things online that I found through, I think it's called bestinstruments.net, and there's Best Communications, for instance. It's an 18-question survey that is self-scorable that helps you to know what your communication style is. And if I think about, me wanting to brand myself, I want to know how is it I need to communicate to somebody to actually have the message stick. And that kind of a profile or that kind of a test might help you to kind of figure out what you currently do. And then you can figure out how you might want to flex your style to, again, project that image of who you want to become. There's a strong interest inventory, and that actually strong Campbell inventory, and that helps you to understand what are your interests. What are those things that are energizers for you, because that might help you to kind of discern what it is that you want to be all about. And another one that I've used frequently is called the Berkman method, and that looks at 4 things from kind of a 10,000-foot view. Number one, it's going to look at what are your interests, what are those energizers that you have, what are those things that you're attracted to. Secondly, it's going to look at what your usual style of behavior is, and the usual style of behavior is a learned behavior. What have you learned in that environment that works for you? That, though, sometimes is in contradiction to what your needs are. So who do you need around you? What kind of environment do you need to actually put you into your best? And then the fourth thing it looks at, if your needs are being met, you'll go into your productive behavior. If not, you're going to look at your stress behavior. And so that's the fourth thing it looks at. So those are just a sampling of what could be out there, but that's really going to be helpful for you to kind of start to think through, not just who am I currently, but who you want to be. Because again, building your own personal brand is about who you want to be and who do you want to be seen as, because it's an advertisement for what you bring to the table, so to speak.
Yeah, I think you brought up some wonderful points, Greg. The first thing that comes to mind is, who do you want to be? I think you see so much right now, it's almost like the personal brand in some respects is such the hot topic. You hear a lot about the soft aspect of it, but it's a rock solid strategy. I believe it has to be integrated in one's career in a really strategic fashion, because you can't write your future story if you don't know your past story. And this gives people the control that they're really, when they feel so out of control in the job market, I think that when you start to come to terms with what your personal brand is and what you want your personal brand to be, you're going to drive the control you want in your career. Would that make sense?
Absolutely does.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, you talk about, your resume is your history. Your brand can be more aspirational, or it can bring in some of the things that are, you're, as a human being, you're much more than just the things that you've done. You're a collection of, just your work history. So it's also important to remember that other people have a role in developing your personal brand as well, and how you're connected, and how the kinds of relationships you're able to build, and to not just leverage, but just the kind of relationships that you're able to cultivate through your career, how people perceive you. I mean, I think that, there's sort of a controversial feature on LinkedIn where people can go and endorse you based on what they think you're good at. And it's interesting because you hear a lot of people talking about how people they've never worked with are endorsing them for something that they would have no idea whether or not they're good at it. But I still think it's an interesting barometer for being able to say, well, if people that I've never met think I'm good at something that they're never exposed to, like, how does that come about? And if they're thinking that maybe I'm better at something that I don't really feel I'm good at, maybe that's worth reaching out to them or saying, hey, I realized you endorsed me for something. What have you, what made you think to do that? And because then you have an opportunity, if they have a wrong idea about you, that you can sort of correct it, and then you can also catch up with them and learn more about what their what they feel their strengths are, or where they've maybe come along in their career since you maybe last connected.
That's a great networking. It's a great way to deepen relationships.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times, we always tend to think about when we're using these networks, that we tend to. I mean, a lot of people have different personal rules around who they will and will not accept sort of a connection from. But it's important for a lot of people whenever they're thinking about opportunities or opening themselves up to more opportunities. It helps to build a network before you need it, and B, to think about opening up your connections through social media to people that they maybe you've. I mean, my rule of thumb is if I've met them, I'll accept a connection, or if we have really a common interest, or someone who has I've worked with before asks me to connect with somebody because they feel like we might benefit from knowing each other or have a common interest. But for LinkedIn, I tend to only take people I've actually met. So that doesn't mean people I've worked with. So it means, I might have just met somebody at a conference, or I might have, maybe evaluated a demo, or some type sort of a vendor, vendor scenario that we might or might not end up working with. I'll accept connect, and those are things I think that open me up to a much broader network. Now, I still don't accept invitations from people I don't know who have no sort of introduction or I have no context for, but I think that's a great way to open yourself up to opportunity. I mean, I have a stat here in front of me that talks about how 58% of job leads are more likely to come from weak ties. And some of those people I mentioned, people you used to work with would be considered a weak tie. Somebody you met at a conference is a weak tie. A strong tie is somebody like in your family or your close network of friends, or someone who you work really closely with. So good to think about, using social media to establish your brand and connect with people, and really just open yourself up to more opportunities as well.
Really good point, the difference between weak ties and strong ties. I like that. I think perhaps a lot of people underestimate the significance of those weak ties. They think of them as weak ties, but they really obviously, it can be a powerful component of somebody's job search.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I think we feel intimidated to ask somebody who we maybe worked with 5 years ago and haven't talked too much since then if they maybe know of any or would like to catch up, and you're definitely putting yourself out there in that kind of a scenario. But a lot of times I think those are the really beneficial beneficial, if you can reach out to somebody like that. At least research shows that, reaching out to people, not always just saying, hey, I'm looking for a job, but to reach out to them and say, hey, do you have time to catch up and have coffee? I'd love to learn more about what you're up to these days, and then give them an update as well. And those are how you can make good things happen.
Yes.
I think Shannon, yourself, Gail, brought up a great point, and that is that branding is all about building a relationship. More than anything else, that's what it is. Dave McNally one time wrote in his book called Be Your Brand that a brand reflects a perception or emotion maintained in someone else's mind. So if you think about that and you think about how you can make that practical, you really want to project out what you want that person, again, to see, to believe, to think about you, and that's then the relationship that you want to establish.
That is a great quote, because as an executive recruiter, one thing that I noticed was it's so hard, especially in today when there are so many people vying for opportunities, to be forgotten. I can't remember. And if you have that brand that has that really anchor in your mind, you are remarkable, you are remembered. And Forbes recently called it the nuclear war for talent. And it's not the best person for the job isn't always the one who gets hired. It's the one you remember. It's the human connection. It's that relationship, because that goes into the culture of the organization. You want to fit, and so that is why I think personal branding is more than just a current catchphrase. I mean, it's going to be an important part of driving anybody's career forward.
Sure. If any of your listeners or your readers right now would look around their room and look at something that they see to be a brand that they like or that they know, they're probably asking themselves 4 questions. Do I trust them? Do I like them? Do I remember them? Or do I value them? So that being said, the trust is probably the key foundation of all of that, and so that depends upon the relationship that you build.
Right. Well, great. Now, I just wanted to ask, is there anything that somebody should not use when applying a personal brand? Any mistakes that people make when they're trying to craft a brand?
I think the key mistake is just in branding yourself as something you're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's being inauthentic. I mean, we don't necessarily want to, bombard people with TMI. You don't always have to open the kimono, but I mean, you definitely want to be yourself. And I think that sometimes we can, especially if we're, when you're early in your career or thinking about what you want to do, I think sometimes you can probably try on some different ways of being, and different interests and things like that. But, and it's okay to discover that, hey, they're not for me, but I think that the sooner you can figure out who you are and what you're all about, I mean, but you definitely don't want to think, oh, I'm not really like this, but I think it'll help me get ahead. So I'm going to pretend to be interested in, whatever it is, or whatever. Maybe it's a cause, or maybe it's a sport or something. But I mean, that gets tired. I mean, you want to be able to build something that's really reflective of who you are.
I'd absolutely reinforce Shannon's statement, because I think we have to recognize that we are always our brand. We're always on stage, no matter where we are. And especially with social media nowadays, catching everything that we do, say, and think, that makes it really important for us to be that person that we truly are.
And that has to be so freeing to people. I think, the one thing about searching for jobs that's broken is trying to be all things to all people, and trying to, we hear about, well, you have to have a resume for every single job that you see online. And, it's like, I think having a personal brand and being able to stand in your truth and being that brand all the time is somewhat empowering to people, and you really can stand true. And yeah, I think this is fabulous. So I don't want to, we could go on and on this topic, but it sounds like portal that you have, the Job Seekers Toolkit, and some of the different online learning modules that are available. You guys are really helping a lot of people, and I really give you credit for seeing a problem in the community and reaching out and offering that help. And again, the first 10 people from our podcast that will email, will get into that and be able to take advantage of that free of charge, which is just a wonderful opportunity. So thank you both for your time, Greg Love and Shannon Paul with Fifth Third Bank. I truly appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, have a great day.